Okay, afternoon, I'm back. Subtle change of scenery. You can tell it's the same day. My hair hasn't grown at all. Um, I've had a break, a bit of orange and banana. Um, I've strangled a badger that was harassing. I've strangled a badger with tuberculosis that was harassing some cows, and I poured a bag of nitrogen into our garden pond to try and enhance its biodiversity value. So this is
Bien-être de biodiversité, deuxième partie.
Biodiversity Net Gain Part 2. I was going to go into the history. That's quite dull. So I think I want to just look at the relationships between biodiversity and nature conservation generally, and the relationship between biodiversity, habitat creation, doing things for human beings and doing things for the environment. And I suppose some frustrations maybe about survival of the fittest and Darwinian theories, and whether we should be planning to create particular types of habitats to preserve particular or enhance and preserve particular types of species, whether it's all about just numbers or whether it's about particular species or particular habitats, particular plants that we're trying to preserve, and why are we trying to do that? Should we be doing that? How relevant is all this biodiversity net gain stuff? Is there some greenwashing here going on? Just on the greenwashing. Okay, so you've got biodiversity net gain. Let's start with a planning application site that's a field, an agricultural field. And you would say in your mind's eye, when you say in your mind that an agricultural field has become, in 15 years' time, is now a field of 20 houses. If we haven't made any biological enhancement that we've scientifically specified in our calculation methods of the biodiversity net gain, we put that to the planning officers. We might have put it through appeal, might have put it through an inspector. But what's really happened on that site? So let's go from a ploughed agricultural field, and then we've got 20 houses on there. What do we really know about what's happened, or what can we really say is going to happen in 15 years' time? So those 20 houses, we don't know if they are going to be 20 houses where people have got astroturf lawns, or whether they're 20 houses where the owners of those future dwellings have created lovely little cottage gardens and planted things to create bee habitats because that's what the kids have been learning at school, or they have provided, they've got an interest in exotic plants and they've planted their gardens up like that. Also, I think we would naturally think that a house itself wouldn't have any biodiversity value. I've had a lot of discussion about this with people in the business, with ecologists, and a house to a bird is quite inviting. Well, it's quite inviting to a number of species, really. A house could be seen as a bird comes towards it, as almost like a cliff, with lots of places to sit, lots of ledges to sit on, places to nest, if the owner of that house were allowed that to happen. if the owner of that house created that environment to encourage it, or didn't maintain the house, so that the roof cavity became, a haven for pipistrelli bats, or the front of the house became a nesting site for swallows. Actually, I want to, maybe the ridiculousness of this is look at what frustrates me a little bit about biodiversity and conservation is what we perceive to be the things. What is it that we're trying to preserve, and what is it that what do we care about and what do we don't care about? So let's just take birds. So there's a protected list. There's a list of the species of birds that we should be protecting. There's a nature conservation list. I don't know whether it comes from the RSPB, probably does. Probably comes from some public survey. I don't know who decides what should be on the protected list of species. But we have a list, so I've got a list here. The current, as I understand it, the current red list of protected birds in Britain are the fieldfare, the golden oriole, the hawfinch, the lesser redpoll, the lesser spotted woodpecker, the marsh tit, the nightingale, the pied flycatcher, the songthrush, the spotted flycatcher, the tree pipit, and the willow tit. And then on the amber list we have the bullfinch, the common redstart, the dunnock, the honey buzzard, the sparrowhawk, the tawny owl, and the willow warbler. So we probably, I've heard of a lot of those. I'm not an ornithologist, I'm not a bird man, but I have heard of a lot of those species, and I appreciate we would probably wish to preserve the honey buzzard, which is amber, and we would wish to preserve the song thrush. And nightingales, they may have lovely songs. They're lovely birds, aren't they? Indigenous British birds. But why are we doing things to preserve habitat for these birds, but not others? Or we like these lists of birds. Is it because they're rare? Is it because they're dying out? Than any other birds. And we could say the same for plants and, well, flora and fauna of any sort. There's a particular, and this is a personal thing to me, that invasive species, quite serious matters, probably one that most people have heard about, especially in the development industry, because it's quite serious. It's Japanese knotweed, because if you have that on your land, that can affect the foundations of buildings, create serious problems. There's other ones that are a bit more personal to me, again, coming from a farming background. There's a lot of oilseed rape plants now that presumably are resistant to disease, resistant to herbicide. So we get them in our hedgerows, and we get them increasingly on the verges, on country lanes, on the sides of roads. And I assume we're getting them because they are a high level of strain or species of oilseed rape that we've genetically developed, and it's hard to kill off. And it's successful, and it's obviously pushing out other native flora. But what's to say that isn't the advancement of nature, that isn't Darwinian advancement of nature, and that's something that we should stop because we want to create a habitat for the pied flycatcher and the red squirrel, or that we want to, and there's the confusing things where we want to protect certain species which want to kill each other as well. That confuses me a little bit. So we're protecting the marsh tit and the tree pipit and the spotted flycatcher from the golden eagle. But the golden eagle, I would have thought would quite like to feast on those, but we're protecting the golden eagle as well. So I'm not sure which we're going to bash over the head first. This is just a serious concern about the overall bigger picture of this, and what the objectives are and what we're actually trying to create. Obviously I'm going all over the place a bit here, but going back to another invasive species, again, personal thing that I don't like, the giant hogweed. It's not a native species. I think it comes from Eastern Russia, and that's maybe why we don't like it. Eastern Russia and Mongolia. It's not a native British species, but it's absolutely thriving in this country, and you see it absolutely everywhere. I mean, it's a very, very strong plant during season, and then it's in my view, again, this is subjective. It's a very ugly plant in winter. I don't like the look of it. I don't like seeing it on country walks. If I see it, I usually pull it out. But that is a plant that's evolved to the circumstances of climate. It's evolved to change, and it is thriving. Is that right that we should stop that? Just because we've decided we'd rather see daisies and buttercups, or I don't know, foxgloves. So this is not necessarily a helpful video in the context of development, but it's just raising some of these questions which I don't think fully embed down and where we're trying to go with biodiversity, other than to say is it just about ensuring there's the maximum number of species in the world? And we had that argument, we preserve as many species as we can in case a wild mushroom holds a cure for terminal lung cancer or something like that. I don't know. It's getting to be a very difficult area, and I think it's being developed. There's so many aspects to it that's been developed into this, from my perspective, from another legislative difficulty for achieving development and achieving planning sites and so on. So that was a thoughts video. I want to do one more because I've got more to say, but I suppose it's not a history one, so I think we'll maybe not do history of biodiversity. Again, didn't sound like an enticing topic to grab hold of, but I do want to say a bit more, so I'm going to make a part 3. Okay, I'm going to go and talk to some more badgers and see if they've got tuberculosis before I come back. Okay, thanks.